Now on to our top story. Obamacare hitting another snag, this time with insurance pricing. The Wall Street Journal reporting a software glitch in the federally run health exchanges is causing those prices to be miscalculated. Adding insult to injury, tests on the price calculator were supposed to happen months ago, but only started this week. With more on this, Dr. Sreedhar Potarazu, the CEO of Vital Springs Technology. Dr. P, thanks for coming on this show. So good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
There's so many things have gone wrong with the implementation of this law. This is yet another one. How serious is this, and can it be fixed in the next 2 weeks?
It's very serious. I don't know the answer if it can be fixed in the next 2 weeks because it's really more than a technology problem, it sounds. You know, if the basic calculations that enable consumers to pick the right plan aren't working, you have to wonder how serious and how deep the problem runs. And one of the big challenges that the insurance companies have that they're really doing for the first time in these marketplaces is having to price insurance independent of an individual's risk. It's almost unheard of in the insurance industry. So we're redefining something that really has never existed. So it's testing uncharted waters.
And as a matter of fact, the insurance companies themselves, many of them backing out of these exchanges because they don't know what to expect. As you say, they don't know how to price the risk. They don't know who's going to sign up. They don't know how much money they're going to be on the hook for. But let me put the question this way, okay? So the law, Obamacare signed into law in March of 2010. 2.5 years ago. They've had 2.5 years to get this software together. What's going on? Is this just another government project that's falling apart?
What's going on is that initially, number one, the estimated cost for the technology and all of the pieces that needed to come together were underestimated. The second thing that's happening is that the government has taken on more responsibility for setting up the marketplaces than they originally had anticipated because many states have opted not to. They're having to now also accept some of the responsibility for employers, as we've seen in the last few days, who are going to opt to not provide benefits and have consumers go to the exchanges. So it's a number of unintended consequences that has surmounted the problem and the magnitude of the implementation, which I think is going to be a real challenge.
It's like playing dominoes, right? One thing falls and another thing falls. Now, I was just giving the government a hard time for not getting its software together for these insurance exchanges. But the reality is even the private exchanges and the state exchanges are having trouble with this, too. It's just a really difficult hurdle. And you've got to wonder if Obamacare can even really be implemented. Certainly not in October, right? I mean, you know, they want to have these exchanges open in October, but is it really going to work? And aren't we looking at an implementation that's going to be a rollout for months and months and possibly even years as all of this law starts slowly, the machinery starts working?
Well, I think that the biggest dependency is going to be whether they get the funding that they need. Based on the vote today, which, you know, who knows how far it's going to go. But nonetheless, if they don't get the necessary funding, there are going to be some major challenges. The other big challenge is, even if the implementation goes along, if you look at the latest poll as of yesterday in terms of the number of people that are still skeptical or don't know enough about Obamacare to know whether it's going to really help them, the amount that they needed to put into communications has been a drop in the bucket. And I think they're starting to recognize that not enough has been done between now and October 1st.
Absolutely true. People don't know, don't understand if they're eligible for help under the law. They don't know. They think that it's been repealed in some cases.
That's right.
Dr. P, I want to take you on to a different topic slightly, and that's the Cleveland Clinic. They're announcing that, you know, they're slimming down. They're changing what they're doing. And this is an institution that is venerable in their circles, very well regarded. And the president himself has talked about how important the Cleveland Clinic is and how it won't be impacted by Obamacare. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting dynamic. The Cleveland Clinic really functions in two paradigms, right? One, it provides services to people in terms of taking care of patients, but the Cleveland Clinic is also a big employer. And if you look at the changes operationally that the Cleveland Clinic talked about, it's consistent with what major employers are saying across the country. They can't afford the burden of what's going to happen in terms of providing benefits. It's impacting profitability and operational cost. The impact of impending retirees is something that everybody is having to deal with. So
right.
Cleveland Clinic as an employer has the same issues that any employer does. When they talk about whether the Cleveland Clinic is efficient in terms of how they provide care to consumers, well, the jury is still out whether the nuances of the Affordable Care Act are in fact going to enable the Cleveland Clinic to stay profitable, to take on all of these sick individuals and still maintain the level of standards that, you know, it's an excellent institution, but at the end of the day, there aren't enough resources to do everything for everyone every time they need it.
Well,
and that's
I
where
want
the
to
jury
get you
is
to
out.
react to one other thing here. And that's how the president's talked about the Cleveland Clinic in the past. Big difference between today and what the president had to say about 2 years ago. Listen to this.
So part of what we want to do is to free doctors, patients, hospitals to make decisions based on what's best for patient care. And that's the whole idea behind Mayo. That's the whole idea behind the Cleveland Clinic. You know, I'm going to be visiting your hometown tomorrow to go to the Cleveland Clinic to show why their system works so well.
Their system works so well, it's being forced to cut $330 million from its budget. And that's because of Obamacare. That's what they said today. What do you say about that contrast? Here's the president holding up the Cleveland Clinic as the example of what's right, and the Cleveland Clinic on its own saying, we're having a heck of a time.
Yeah, well, I think it's the whole impact of what we've done all along is looking at Obamacare through a very narrow lens. I think the bigger impact of how these hospitals, whether it's the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic, are really going to be empowered to be able to measure quality of care, to be able to do the things that they need to. It doesn't exist, and I'll tell you as a doctor that there's a fundamental challenge in terms of they got all of the doctors are trying to get them to implement electronic medical records with the hopes that they can pull this data out to understand about the metrics of quality of care, where number one, there's a lot of resistance and there's a long way to go in terms of the adoption and the success of the medical community in doing that. In the next couple of months, there's another hurdle that they've got to come over in terms of getting data out to try to engage consumers. The doctors don't have access to the information in order for them to really get people to be compliant or to be, you know, really to be able to even earn the kind of benefits and rewards for driving compliance. So it is a benchmark that is almost impossible to reach.
I got to tell you, we have so far to go on this. You think these announcements this week that, you know, there are problems with the software. You think that's a big problem. There is more to come. Dr. P, thanks for coming on the show tonight. It's always so good to have you on. Have a great weekend.